And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Get Plugged podcast. For those of you all who don't know me, I am LaShawn Davis, and I'm your host for this podcast tonight. And we meet here every Wednesday, 8 p.m., where we touch on a topic that's going to help you thrive in your professional world or your professional life, in your career, entrepreneurship journey, whatever it is that you decide to do. This is a place for you to come park and learn some tools, tips, resources, hear some stories that can help make you make some decisions that will work best for you in your life. And so we are here tonight. I am excited to be here. The HR Plug is a consulting firm that we work with employers and employees to provide resources and tools to help you plug into your potential. So as an employee, that could be potentially figuring out your career journey and your strategy. What should you do if you decide you want to launch and take the leap into entrepreneurship? How do you make that transition? Or everybody isn't cut up for entrepreneurship. So what if I want to stay working for a company or corporation? We help you work through and assess what's best for you based on what your needs are and what you want to do in life. And employers, we do the same thing in helping develop leaders so that they understand the value of employees and how to take care of them in ways that make the organization thrive. And so we are here tonight, and we are going to be talking to an amazing guest, Anthony D. Mays, who is here with us, and he's going to be talking about why he left Google. And now that just struck me because, I mean, who doesn't want to work at one of the biggest tech giants in the industry? And he did for some years, but has decided to transition and tell us where he's going, what he's doing, and why he left. And so we'll be talking to him tonight. But as we always do, I like for you guys to check in and let me know that you're here. Say hello. I know that we have some people already in here that have joined in, and we have Jose. Welcome, Jose. Thank you for joining. Jose is here supporting Anthony, and we are glad that you are here. We have Hafiz here also as well. Thank you for joining. And, Hafiz says, good evening, everybody. We are excited that you are here. We have some folks joining us from LinkedIn tonight. And we have Michael here as well saying hi to Anthony. So Michael, welcome to the HR Plug podcast. Thank you for joining. Anthony, thanks everybody for pulling up. And we do, because we know that this show cannot be interactive without your participation. And we also like to do here on this podcast is make sure that you get what you need from this episode. So if you have questions for our subject matter expert, you have things that you want them to answer for you, ask them in the chat. We have Katie Jones here. Hi, LaShawn. Looking forward to hearing Anthony's transition story. And I am looking forward to him sharing his story. We have so many people here, Anthony, excited to have you come out. So let me just, let me get the other people that are coming up. We have, Muhammad is here, and Anthony is also in the chat. So he's going to be able to engage with you guys as well. So make sure that you, talk to him and say hello if I can't get you shouted out on the screen here live. But talk to us. Let us know what topics, what subjects Anthony can answer for you once you understand his gift, right? What he's a solution for and how he can help you. All right. So we have Trina saying hello. Hi, Trina. How are you? Hi, Dana. How are you? Thank you for joining. We have Fenton here. Hi, Fenton. Welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Mohammed, welcome to the show. I am so glad that you guys, LinkedIn is representing tonight, let me tell you. So thank you guys so much for joining. So like we always do, first I want to talk to you guys about some announcements that we have happening over in the HR Plug world. First is our Unplug Conference. It is a business conference for HR professionals because we all know that they are tired. And the trailer that we saw is an introduction to the people that will be speaking at this conference. But if you are in HR, you are a leader who has an HR team, you are someone that wants to help support the people who are the nucleus to organizations, you want to support this event. You want to support the Unplug Conference because it's an opportunity for HR professionals who a lot of them are burnt out and tired dealing with what we've been dealing with COVID and the pandemic and the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle or people just getting fed up about what their workplace situation looks like. So they're pulling on HR to help them be better. Now it's time for us to pour into HR so we can help them be better for you. And that's what this conference is about. So if you are interested in learning more about this conference, make sure you visit our website, unplugconference.com, where you can find out more information and how to get registered and how to meet us at this hybrid event next month. Next up, we also have the Black Successful Creators series that is launching on JP High Tech Reviews YouTube channel. So make sure you go and watch this. We're going to be highlighting some special people in the creative industry space, tell their story and messages that could inspire you of their journey of how they get there. And I am so honored to be one of the people speaking here. And I'll be talking about what it takes to step out in faith and how to get the courage to step out and do what it is that you want to do in life. So make sure you tune in February the 15th. It's going to be 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. And I'll also be streaming it on my YouTube channel as well. So if you're not connected, make sure you subscribe to the HR Plug YouTube channel so that you can get notified when we go live and when I began my series of posting some how-to HR information. The first series that we're going to be touching on is how to ask for a raise, how to, number one, know if you should be asking, how to prepare to ask, and what to say when you're ready to have that conversation. So if topics like that interest you, make sure you subscribe because that's what we'll be launching on our first series on advocating for yourself in the workplace. So make sure you tune in for that. Also, I want to thank anybody who's listening to us on an audio platform. We are also on all streaming podcast platforms. So if you missed a live episode that we show on YouTube, you can always check the replay on YouTube or listen to us on your commute to work or on your commute to the grocery store or while you're cleaning your house, wherever it's convenient for you. You can also tap into us via audio. We are on all areas that are your favorite podcast ways to listen, whether it's Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Anchor, we are there. So make sure that you come in and find us on here and listen and see what you might have missed if you weren't able to catch us on YouTube. And then finally, if you want to connect with me, www.thehrplug.com has a free consultation link that I'm doing for a little while that you can go ahead and schedule your free 30-minute consultation. And let's talk about how I can support you navigate through whatever workplace challenge you might be facing or how I can help you plug into your potential. So those are our announcements for tonight. And before I bring Anthony out, I just kind of want to take you guys back to episode 2. If you recall, we launched this podcast in January, right? So we're rolling into our month of February, our second month. So the second episode we aired was about how to get unstuck from your 9 to 5. We talked about how to jump and make that leap and giving you the encouragement to know that you can do it. If you missed that episode, make sure that you go watch it. Nakia Nunn was our guest, and she gave some really great tips on how to, number one, know if you're prepared to take the leap and how to do it if you believe you are prepared after understanding what her guidance was there. Tonight, we have Anthony here who actually took the leap. He left his job at Google after working there and went into his own entrepreneurial space. And that is something amazing because it's so ironic that we talked about doing it and now we have a guest who actually did it. So he's going to come on here and he's going to share his story. If you want to know more about Anthony, we're going to talk about how to connect with him and how to tune into him. I'm going to also be adding to this episode in the description a link to a BuzzFeed video that he was also featured in when he was regarded as a 1% of African-American or Black representation in Google Tech. So he's probably going to be touching on that a little bit for us tonight. And he's all the way from Compton. So let me shout out Compton for producing this amazing genius here that's going to be on here tonight. All the way from Compton to Google, now all the way from Google to entrepreneurship and to this podcast. I want to welcome Anthony to the show. Hi, Anthony. How are you today?
I'm doing much better than I deserve. That's straight up.
Well, look, we are so glad you are here. We have so many people saying that they're here to see you and hear your story. And so remember, guys, just tune into the chat if you have a question for Anthony. But I'm just going to, Anthony, first, let's talk about you. I thank you
Yeah.
for being here. I thank you for being willing to share your story. And I thank you for bringing awareness to the lack of diversity and representation in the tech world and sharing with us what you're doing about that. So all of that is exciting for us. And I'm going to turn it over to you. How about you tell our viewers a little bit about you and your story, where you started?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So, I always start in 1988. Around the time when Straight Outta Compton was the album that put the city on the map, and it was also around that time, shortly before that, I had been. It was discovered by my teacher that I'd been the victim of physical abuse, and there was also sexual abuse involved too, but I didn't mention that. And I was put into foster care for like the fourth time, and my two brothers were also put in foster care. But fortunately, by God's grace, we were adopted by a couple that we knew, and so we were able to come home in a way to where we would stay for the rest of our time growing up, and learn how to code when I was 8 years old. Struggled with bullying, in the hood, and I wanted to figure out a way to do better than what I was seeing around me, to maybe get out of the hood one day, go to college, but then also come back and do something substantial and be an example for those that I had grown up with. And attended the University of California, Irvine, where I was one of a very few who was doing computer science at the time. I'm talking about being in a classroom, a lecture hall, 200, 300 people. I look around and maybe there's one other Black person in the room.
Wow. Wow.
And yeah, so I remember being approached by Google at a campus job fair, and I was like, "Yeah, y'all are cool. I would love to work for y'all." Threw the application away because I was like, "Yeah, I ain't gonna hire no Negro from the hood. That's not gonna happen."
Right.
So, I tried. In 5 years later, I got contacted on LinkedIn. This is what I talk to people about, making sure that you got a polished, good LinkedIn profile, because I got my job by being approached on LinkedIn,
Wow.
and went and interviewed and failed. I was studying. I was working hard, studying the wrong information, and ended up not getting the job. So I didn't think I could get it, and then I went on and didn't get it. And um, you know, by God's grace, the recruiters reached out multiple times after that. I think 3 times over the next 2 years, and I kept saying, "No, no, I'm good. Thank you, I'm fine." And the last recruiter uh, put on the kid gloves. Was, "Oh, don't worry. We'll help you out. We got you. We have the resources." And I was reading between the lines. She was basically like, "Stop being a punk and do it. Like, you don't have nothing to lose. Just do it." And so I did, and studied for a month and a half, taking public transportation at the time, studying on the bus, the train during their work hour, 3 hours a day, um, for about a month and some change, and got the job. And I tell people all the time, you would think that after that would be happily ever after, but it wasn't, because I found myself in this foreign environment, surrounded by people I didn't know, this position of privilege with which I was unfamiliar. And as an example, Google's notoriously famous for micro kitchens and free food and snacks. I remember the time when I went to one of the fridges and found escargot sandwiches. You're talking about a kid that grew up poor in the hood, now being treated to free escargot sandwiches. And so the whole experience was breaking my brain. I didn't realize what was happening until Google released their diversity numbers in 2014, and I saw that 2% stat line for employees who were Black and working at Google, and then the 1% for those who were Black and in a technical role. And I began to understand that I was in a totally new space, but that I could do something about it. And so from that time, I've been steadfastly committed to helping to improve not just representation, but also inclusion for folks who
Wow.
come from underrepresented backgrounds.
And our story, as I was sharing with you, is very similar because that's one of the reasons why the HR plug exists, to help people who don't have access and information, right? You said something interesting. So Google had 2% black and 1% tech. Wow. So listen, we got a shout out to UCI here. So Kimberly was our guest
Hey,
speaker last week, and she teaches. She's an instructor here at UCI, and she does a lot of stuff for UCI other than that. But you got
hey,
that
zot, zot,
connection
zot,
here.
zot, zot,
So
zot.
yeah. So and we do, Jose. I see your question, and I'll get to you in 1 second. Because before we really deep dive jump into talking about tech and all that, can you tell us a little bit for people like me what encompasses tech? Like when I think about tech, I think about my IT person that's supposed to give me my laptop when I start work, or if I can't get into something, the help desk I call. So that's what tech is to me. But is that the true definition of tech, or what encompasses that?
Yeah, it may be surprising to some people, but tech is full of everything else that any other company is full of. You know, tech companies need lawyers, they need consultants, they need folks who know CRM, they need sales. In a lot of what tech is in people's minds is coding, hacking, building computers, taking them apart, doing the IT thing. But there's so much more opportunity there. And so I talk to people about, especially young people, as I encounter them, about exposing to them this wider world of tech. Where if you're interested in law, art, medicine, there's some way that you can at least be tangentially related to the tech industry. And so, I want to disabuse people of the notion that to get into tech you have to code. That's that's a that's a myth. It isn't necessarily the case that you need to do those things. And these are things that, like, being in tech for 20 years, are obvious, but for those who haven't been in for as long or haven't been exposed, as many in underrepresented communities still haven't been exposed, it's intriguing when I tell them that they can do these things. There's chefs at tech companies, right? Some of my best friends at Google were the chefs. Because I love the people that make me free food. Let me just be straight up.
Right.
Right. So yeah, but I mean, there's so much opportunity to be had, and these a lot of these tech companies, especially the big ones, are multinational conglomerates. They're looking for talent wherever they can find them. And I think what makes my job so interesting as someone who advocates for the underrepresented is showing them that the answer to their problem isn't just in elite Ivy League schools, but is also in your community colleges, in your
Yeah.
neighborhoods, barrios, ghettos, in places that have previously been overlooked.
Absolutely. And as an HBCU grad myself, I graduated from Florida A&M University, and that was a struggle when I was going. They'd come to us for to check a box off a list. Oh, but not thinking that there would be true talent, in there. And that's one of the reasons why I went to an HBCU. And that's why I also, like you, support those underrepresented communities, because we out here, we are out there. And there are some people that are just naturally gifted and talented. And we have to give those individuals the access to the information that's available. So that's what I love about what you do. So we do have a question that I just want to share. You talked about the interviewing process, right, with Google. So is it true that the job interviews at big tech companies are harder than the actual job?
So I think the answer is both yes and no. The interview is harder in that you have less time to work on the problem that you're given. And you're only working collaboratively with one person who's your interviewer, and you may feel the pressure of being assessed in an interview situation, and feel the rigor of having to go through, famously, like the Google interview, the interview loop where you're talking to 4 or 5 engineers, and other big tech companies do that as well. So in that sense, it can be harder, feel harder. But in another sense, I tell people all the time that my best days at Google as an engineer centered around having experiences that were reflected in the interview. That is, being able to work with another engineer to problem solve and to break apart a problem, really understand what's going on, and then bring to bear the right tools and resources to solve it. And there's been plenty of times where on the job I felt like it's an interview, because I'm talking to my coworkers and we're trying to figure things out, and we don't all the way know what the answer is, but we're working towards it. And I think that if you have the right mindset about what tech companies are looking for when they're hiring talent, then I think that helps you to find success in the interview and to understand the relevancy of the process to the job. And not all companies understand this. Some companies just want to copy what they see the big tech companies doing, and it's very arbitrary or not well thought through. So I can understand the struggle of doing interviews at different kinds of companies and being confused, to say the least, by the degree of variance, right? But I think the key is to understand what big tech companies are doing, to understand why they interview the way that they do, and what they're doing are solving. They're solving problems that are hard and ambiguous and don't have clear solutions up front. They need people who are comfortable working in that kind of environment and making progress and moving forward. So I think that it takes courage, it takes thoughtfulness, it takes the ability to really consider good problem solving skill to succeed at the interview. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people who spend all their time learning the tools end up still failing in the interview, because they know what tools to use, but they don't know how to apply them correctly. And so one of the things that I do as a career coach and interview coach is to teach people, you don't want to put a nail in the wall using the back of a screwdriver. That's just not going to work well for you. But when you don't have good problem solving skill, that's what you're likely to do.
Right. Wow. Thank you for that. I didn't even know tech interviews had you solve a problem on the spot. So you just got to also be able to work under pressure, it seems like, under, intense situations. That's really good
Yeah.
to know. So Edward wants to know, and if you don't know, it's perfectly fine. But do you know how the numbers today are at Google?
Yeah, I don't recall at the top of my head what they are.
Hmm.
I think the numbers are, oh, yeah, I don't know. I think
Well,
somewhere around 3 or 4% total
oh,
for
so we're still
licensure.
underrepresented in tech, it sounds like.
Yeah, so I mean, there's it could be higher. You can always check google.com/diversity, I think is where they post the latest report.
Hmm.
And just tech companies as a whole. I think that the picture still isn't clear with regards to what the representation is, number one, and even more importantly, what it should be. And I think that, when we say underrepresented, at what number or what percentage do we say we're properly represented? Is there such thing as overrepresentation when it comes to these previously underrepresented groups? So it's a hard problem, and it's not one that you can just throw technology at. It requires some careful thinking, and I think that the answer could be different from one company to the next. At least that's my view. I've certainly benefited from having uh, experiences with all kinds of people who reflect a variety of life circumstances and situations and backgrounds that are different than mine, and that's been enriching and continues to be enriching in my journey in tech. And I'm sort of glad that at Google I haven't. I think that had I been surrounded by tons of people who look like me and who came from where I came from, I would have lost out on the opportunity to really benefit from and grow from the experience of diverse teams and diverse contexts that I've had.
Wow. Wow. And I went ahead and I pulled this up that you were talking about. So yeah, it's see if I can show this here. I'm gonna have you pop in here. So representation at Google, it talks about to answer your question, through gains in representation, though gains in representation are not evenly realized for all, our work in hiring is having an impact for women in tech all over the world, and for Black and Latinx people for the U.S., for example, YouTube realized a 4% increase in global representation year over year for women in tech. So it looks like, to your point, Anthony, they recognize there's an opportunity here, and they're setting a bar to be transparent in their data that shows that. There's this report, if you go to Google .com/diversity that talks through what their numbers look like if that's something that you want to look at. But yeah, so here we go. This is for
Yeah,
2020 and 2021.
and here's what I'll say about the numbers. I think one of the things that we can be fixated on in this time uh, is where the numbers are today and what are they tomorrow and what do they look like next year. I think about the progress in the tech space within the context of Black history in its entirety, or at least up to this point. Change has always been slow. It's been steady, but it's been slow. And so I'm not surprised that, in the tech industry's attempts to fix this problem that didn't start with tech and didn't actually start with America, um, you know, that I'm not surprised that it's going to take a while, right, to roll back some of the things that we've seen up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to be, the first couple of years I saw the diversity numbers, I was like, okay, we're at 1%. Next year, oh wow, we might be like 5%, and that's going to be amazing. Then after that, 10% or something like that. And it was like 1% the one year, and then the next year it was still 1%. It's like, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to realize that it's that stony the road we trod is what the third
Mm-hmm.
verse of the Black National Anthem,
Anthem.
"Lift Every Voice and Sing," says, right? But it's still stony.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't
Mm-hmm.
stop being stony. It's still stony. I think it's not as stony as it was,
Right.
um, and I enjoy a great deal of privilege in where I sit. But it still takes time, and I think that there's to some degree undue pressure put on the tech industry because tech is so used to changing the world many times over in a very short amount of time. I
Mm-hmm.
think that we have this unfair expectation that if we just throw money and technology at this, we can solve it very quickly, and I don't believe for 1 second that that's the case.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you have some good points. It's about progress, right? We're not going to see that big galactical jump because it's going to take time, and also you do want when people to come and that number increases for them to feel inclusive. So there's one thing about diversity numbers, and then there's another thing about inclusivity, right? So you got to they have to also make sure that their culture is positioned to make sure that when we begin to have more diverse representation, that they do feel it's genuine and feel like it's a part of it, and we're not just doing it for the numbers. So yes, Tony the road we trod, and it's still there. We're just very mindful of progress. So that's a good way to look at it, Anthony. I appreciate that. So we have some some chat over here. Monica says hello. Hi, Monica. How are you? Thank you for joining. Jose has another question here. Would you say that the percentage of representation has not improved or remained stagnant? With this information, why would a person of color or other underrepresented communities choose to work with an entity that struggles with this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think there's been progress. Like I said, I think it's been slow progress, and I'm not all the way surprised by that. Part
Right.
of there's even in the attempt to fix issues, I think that there have been missteps in the tech industry. No one was really paying attention to the revolving door effect. It used to be that we call this diversity and inclusion. And I learned, after some time working in this space that we got the order wrong. It's not that diversity precedes inclusion. You've got to work on inclusion first, and then the
Mm-hmm.
diversity follows.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because there's so many people, especially early in my tenure at Google, that would just hit me up on LinkedIn and say, "So what's it like to be a Black man at Google? Like, I need to know, one brother to another." And at first, I was taken aback by like how forward some people would be to want to know that, but I totally understood what they're saying, right? Because too often, people, underrepresented folks, people of color, will jump into spaces with expectations that are misaligned with the reality, and then they end up leaving right out the door that they came in. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the gains that had been produced uh, during during this time period of maybe over the last decade to improve representation, a lot of those gains were lost immediately because people were
Mm-hmm.
coming into these environments and finding that the culture was awful.
Right.
But here's the thing: there are people like me who, once I got in the door, decided that I needed to do something to hang on to my seat for as long as I could to institute positive change and be a light in the room. And I think about that not just as an engineer and as a programmer, as a professional, or as even someone who's Black, but as a Christian, as a man of faith,
Mm-hmm.
as someone whose job is always to be a light
Yeah.
for Christ, for the gospel, for God. And so uh, I think that faith has uniquely suited me and prepared me to hang on tight, even in rough situations, to endure the challenges of the things that I may have to deal with. And at the end of the day, I'm still not having a bad day. Like when I was at Google, was making excellent money, 401k,
Mm-hmm.
equity, benefits, all that stuff. And I got to talk about, representation and white privilege and, struggle and all that stuff and get bonuses and platforms. Our ancestors got chased by dogs, hosed down
Mm-hmm.
with water hoses, um, fought at every twist and turn, in some cases hung
Mm-hmm.
and lynched, uh, just for looking at somebody wrong. And so I realized that there's a great deal of progress in that I have so much privilege compared to my ancestors that I don't have much that I can complain about.
Right.
Somebody looks at me sideways,
Yeah.
so what? You're not going to stop
Right.
me from doing what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to dissuade me from being a positive beacon of hope and light and uh, bringing truth to a situation that needs it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Kimberly has asked a great question because you just mentioned how you talked, you had to speak on these things, but being one of the few, did you feel that it was a burden to be asked to answer questions speaking on behalf of the Black experience?
Not at all, because I've always carried that. I feel like I've always carried the responsibility. Remember when I tried the Google interview and failed the first time, I felt like I represented all Black people everywhere. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
fair to think that way, but that's the way that I felt coming into the experience. I thought in a very real sense, the person that I'm interviewing with, I might be one of only two Black engineers this person ever meets in their entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to try to leave a good mark. But I've gotten so used to carrying that burden, so used to carrying that tax that now I feel like I've just made it part of how I engage with the world. And so I've sought to do so responsibly and carefully. And my basic contract with people is this: you can talk to me about whatever you want. You can ask me about anything, no problem. I promise not to get angry with you. I promise to demonstrate patience towards you. So long as you don't lay hands on me, we're
Right.
good,
That
right?
Compton gonna come out.
I'm just saying, I've been in a non-trivial number of fights growing up, but
Mm-hmm.
um, but so long as I'm not in the position where I've got to defend myself physically,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too worried about. I mean, I grew up bullied in Compton. I mean, what can you really do,
Right.
right?
Right.
What can you really say? And so I feel like it's important for me to to be that bridge, that connection, showing people at Google and Twitter and Facebook and Microsoft or wherever um, what can happen when you include someone like me who comes from this underrepresented background,
Mm-hmm.
who maybe doesn't represent the typical Silicon Valley story.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you engage with someone like that? And I always make it a point to say I'm not the only person uh, with the that's experienced the struggles and the things that I have. And one of the great privileges of working at a place like Google is that I've met people from all over the world who have overcome incredible circumstances, incredible feats. Who were first generation college graduates, who were the first to break into tech, who were the first to make more money, during a summer internship than their parents had made in a lifetime. In having that perspective, really puts me in my place, because I'm just one of many magnificent stories that are coming to life, and I think that it's a privilege to be part of that and to provide a perspective.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. You are one of different types of stories. I think it's compelling that your story affects the Black community because we're not so often exposed to computers. Don't grow up with computers. That's not what we got for Christmas when you're from an represented or underprivileged thing. You lucky if you went to a school that had a computer lab, right? So, I see that that access and things like that have a huge, I think, deal to do with the disparities that exist. And you having an opportunity to speak on that and be the light that, towards that, I think is just amazing because you're giving people something that they never knew existed or that they could be or do coming from where they come from, right? So
Yeah.
that is in itself is remarkable. And I know I want to talk about like why you left Google, right? But I do want to address Edward's question here.
Mhm.
He just wants to know about equity. Do you believe you were paid equal to your peers, being that you were a minority there?
Absolutely. So um, I'll say that I believe personally the answer was yes, but also I didn't necessarily care. And I know that that's a
Mm-hmm.
strange thing to say, but I've only been concerned with having what it was sufficient to do what I needed to do as a husband and as a father, to make sure that I'd be able to leave my children an inheritance and my grandchildren an inheritance, and really just serve well in whatever capacity I needed. And I think that I obtained that position before I got to Google.
Mm-hmm.
I almost had to like stomp on my own feet to say like, oh no, I'm good. Like you don't have to give me this really huge bonus that is larger than everything I've ever
Mm-hmm.
seen in my life, right? Like I, I had to tell myself that because um, I've been so grateful to be in the position. Now I realize that it's also important for me to say, listen, if I'm not being compensated at a level that is equitable to my peers for the same work and the same task, that's wrong, right? I know that I have a responsibility to do that. But at the same time, uh, I think that being in a position where I can be grateful and thankful for what I have without complaining is very important for just me to be able to move the way that I need to move.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the prayer in the scriptures. You know, the idea that don't give me too much so that I forget about God
Right.
and
Right.
proclaim I don't need Him,
Mm-hmm.
but don't give me so little that I'm tempted to steal and to rob and dishonor God. And so I think so long as I'm in between those two, and God
You're
just
good.
continues to answer that prayer abundantly, like I'm good. And so, but yeah, in my own experience, and this is one of the reasons why I have loved my years at Google is I don't know how it is at other tech companies. I don't know if under leveling is more of a thing at other places, but for me, in my own experience, not only have I been compensated well, but my team has really gone to bat to make sure that all those things were happening. It's possible that you end up on a team where that doesn't happen,
Right.
and where you've really got to fight and nickel and dime.
Right.
But in my own experience, I've been pretty blessed.
Yeah, and you said something that was very key. I think somebody left a comment and I want to share their story like that they
Yeah.
wanted to share, but
Hmm.
oftentimes what you find with underrepresented, individuals, we don't know what because what's a lot to us could be very well under what the market pays for something, right? And we don't. I'm good at this $50,000 because before, I never seen that much money in my life. And but what you said was you need to ensure by asking, is this salary aligned and equitable with what everybody else and my peers are getting paid in this role? And last week we had an awesome conversation about negotiations and talent acquisition and things like that. And you really don't have to negotiate if you know what your number is that you want to say yes to, and you ensure that it's aligned to be equitably paid with your peers. And I think that's the key. So while we could be excited about being the first person ever in my family to make six figures, so I'm good, you want to know if other people are making six plus 50 extra $1,000, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's where sometimes companies undercut us. But I think what you said is so key. Ask that, make sure, ensure I'm excited about this salary, I'm excited about this increase, and I just want to confirm, is this aligned to be equitably paid with what my peers in this role are making?
Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, I did my homework.
Mm,
That was a large part of that, right? The reason why I know that I was being paid fairly, at least in my view, is that I was going on Glassdoor. I was looking at, things like levels.fyi. You can't always trust what you hear online, but,
right.
you know, folks be acting a fool online. But I would have conversation. And matter of fact, people, because of the way that I move, people would volunteer information. Hey
Yes.
Anthony, I know that these are the things that you care about. Here's my experience, and because I try to be trustworthy and to treat people with respect. They have, hey, I'm over here, and this is what I'm getting, and all that. And so I think it's been, uh, I've had to do my homework to know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that for me. If I felt like I weren't in a situation where I was being treated fairly, I know that I would have the responsibility to say something and to have that
Right.
discussion. And there's so much, to your point earlier, so much education that needs to happen. I didn't understand my compensation at Google when I first got it. Like, I'm
Yep.
sorry, I didn't. And uh, for better or for worse, that was what happened. And I think that now one of the things that I want to do is help people to understand. Hey, here are the kinds of things that you can expect. Here's the difference between a stock option versus a stock grant.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the difference. Here's how you need to be thinking about 401ks. Here are some hacks. Here's where you go figure out that information. Because so many people will come into tech, as you mentioned earlier, and make more money than they ever have in their life. And they go tell their parents, and my parents are just like, you make that much, really? And you get to show up to work at 10 o'clock in the morning? How did you do that?
Right, right, right. It's no different than athletes, right? When they make they make it, and athletes, and then we always hear the stories about how they mismanage or they retire broke and all of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a gap.
I grew up with MC Hammer. I grew up with
Mm-hmm.
TLC, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are folks who were successful, set all kinds of records, world
Yeah.
renowned, and ended up broke.
Well, yeah.
And it right. And when I talked about tech companies, I was just like, y'all have to understand that if you're coming from like where I come from, if you come from my hood, that's what you're thinking about.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. So I just want to this is a long comment, but it's not a question. I started my journey into tech about 2 years ago at an age way older than most. I think about the barriers that I may face regarding race, sex, and age. What a combo! It's intimidating, but I know if I put in the work and persist, I will get there. Anthony, what you are doing is so important. I did not have mentorship, was a first generational college student, knew no adults who had professional careers. Everybody was laborers or factories. Grew up in a rural setting. I praise God for where I am even today. There is still a strong need for exposure into tech and all the other fields. And for many from a similar background. So God bless you and keep doing what you are doing. So that
oh, I'm so
they
grateful.
don't have a name, so I'm not sure the person that said that, but I wanted to point that out who shared that because, like you mentioned earlier, there are so many people who this is a first for, right? And that's why we do what we do. That's why we have the access and try to provide the knowledge so that we can help people who might be a first gen or older or an underrepresented sex or what have you in the workplace. So Edward says, Anthony, thank you for doing what you are doing. LinkedIn user, again, no name. Thank you, Anthony, for the invite to the Let's Get Plugged and sharing your views, wisdom, and experience. Yes. And Monica, who's representing Cali, by the way, she mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
How do you stay so calm, cool, and collective through all of the controversy, so much
Yeah.
crazy and controversy, and I guess like social injustices and things that we've been facing, with you being underrepresented, quote unquote. How do you stay calm?
Mm. So this, okay. So it's I'm about to go in real quick. So just
Okay.
consider yourself warned. Um, so many people get in this, and this is, I think, the worst part of tech is that tech itself is sort of a religion, and people buy into and subscribe to the religion of tech. You're told by these companies that you're going to do cool things, that you're going to change the world, that you're going to, fix problems in ways that haven't been solved before, and we need you, and there's family and culture and so forth and so on. And people, if you're not careful, tech becomes a sort of god to you, and becomes this idol, by which you think that sort of all other problems can be solved. And what's happened is, people who come from these underrepresented backgrounds come into tech, and even those who are well represented, come in expecting one thing and are devastated when they learn that that's not what it is. Like, tech companies are still companies. Their goal is to make money, right? And if they're not making money, some of the stuff in that mission is going to change, right? And I think that for me, having a settled foundation in God, in Christ, um, knowing that I serve Christ, and that my faith is strong, and that means that my identity isn't tied up in um, in the job that I do or the company that I work for. My identity isn't even tied in the color of my skin. I appreciate the skin that I'm in. I love the people that I get to represent and serve alongside, and get to be a part of. But my identity isn't tied up in that. And not every Black person is my tribe. Let's just be honest. But I can come home at the end of the day knowing that I did good work representing Christ my King, and like that's sufficient. I know that when I go to work, even if I'm encountering difficult situations, I can do that to the glory of God. And that's an example that I find all over Scripture. I think about in the New Testament, one of the writers, Paul, talked about. It doesn't matter if you have a harsh master. We might the modern analog would be a boss. He'd say, I don't care if you have a bad boss, you still work in an exemplary way so that perhaps you may win your boss over by your good conduct.
Yeah.
And I think about that, and there have been people who have mistreated me on the job, and I remained calm and kept composure, because I knew that they were powerless to really change what I needed to do. And as a result, they'd come back to me afterwards and say, Anthony, that moment, that I wasn't at my best. Sorry, forgive me. I wasn't thinking through how that might impact you. And if I had responded harshly, if I had fought, then I think it would have only added gasoline to a burning fire and been a thing. And so, there's just so many situations like that where, again, because this doesn't come from me. Like I have plenty of biblical examples, and I think God works in my life to help me have that demeanor. And everything about me is just me just saying, look at what God did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like He's doing amazing stuff. And you can see that in my life, and you can see that in others too. Like that's what I'm about. And, I know not everybody agrees with that. I totally get that. Not everybody can be on board with that, but you're not going to tell me what I'm going to say.
Right. It worked for you, right? I mean, and listen, as like I told you, I'm also a woman of faith, right? And just knowing that your sole purpose in doing what you do is because that's what you've been called to do. You have to be mindful of who you represent. So you can't be out here, looking crazy, but still trying to tell people, no, but I'm a man of God, or I'm or what have you. So I see your point, and that having a whole lot to do with not giving people sometimes what they even expect, or how they expect us to respond. Right.
Yeah,
We have to
absolutely.
continue to show love and continue to show respect, regardless. So that totally makes sense to me. So now the $1 million question, right? You were at Google for how long? 8 years, 10 years, 8 years,
I was at Google for 8 years.
8 years. So
Yeah.
why now? Like, why did you take this leap into entrepreneurship?
That's a really good question. um, like I knew that was the question of the hour, and I'm still I'm thinking about how good I had it, but But for me, I've always been mission driven in what I do, and I think when I saw the diversity numbers in 2014, that lit my butt on fire. And there's just been this escalating drive and escalating desire to be more impactful in opening up opportunities for the next generation and really seeing myself as part of Black history, as being, the modern incarnation of examples like, Garrett Morgan, Lewis Latimer, Benjamin Banneker, C.J. Walker, Madam C.J. Walker, folks like this, and so for me, I am. I think that I came to a point where I realized things are great at Google. I love what I do. I love the opportunities that I get, but I could be doing more besides coding. And as someone who's coded for almost every day for 20 years, and I've loved and enjoyed the work that I've done at Google, it's been impactful stuff. I think towards the end of last year, as we were talking more earnestly about the Great Resignation, and as I was interacting with the community, I could see tons of people who were trying to make that transition into tech and needed help. I could see tons of people who, like me, so many years ago, wanted to navigate the space and didn't know how to do it, and didn't know how to find reliable resources and reliable people. And there's a lot of people out there that I think are trying to take advantage um, of underrepresented folks who are trying to come into this space. I think that there are still people out there who are trying to make a buck off of this Great Resignation, and I want to do my part to fight against that. And to provide, I think, reliable coaching services, reliable information and advice, really thinking about people in a thoughtful way, and in an intentional way for their benefit, while also lending my voice in the corporate world, in the VC world, to talk about the experiences of folks like me and others who come from these underrepresented spaces. And I just feel like the tools and the atmosphere and everything was just kind of converging together at this point. There's some partners that I've been able to work with recently. One such example is Brilliant Black Minds, which is a program geared towards helping HBCU students, understand what it takes to use their technical skills to get jobs in top tier companies, and just to really establish themselves. I grew up with INROADS, and that was such a fantastic program for me in terms of teaching me job skills and how to manage my career, how to be accountable for things. And I realized that there's still a great need for this, specifically in the tech industry. So, I felt like by leaving Google, I'm going to give up a steady paycheck. I'm going to give up upward trajectory. I'm going to give up, the perks and all this nice stuff. But in exchange, I'm going to be able to move even harder and work even harder to really, bring positive change to my community and to other communities like Compton, Long Beach, Inglewood, Harlem, South Side of Chicago, wherever you may be, even internationally. And so I think that, I've known about entrepreneurship since I was a young man, since I was in middle school. And I've always sort of had a dream to jump into it and to have my own thing. And I think having a side hustle at Google, so I ran Morgan Latimer Consulting as a side hustle. I don't know, 5 years into my tenure at Google. And even just running that side hustle was such an eye-opening experience for me. And I think, even if you are working a 9 to 5, if you can find a way to start a business and to run it, it gives you so much insight into the larger business world. And it just,
So
I had to
Morgan
do it.
Morgan Latimer Consulting, that's the name of your business. Tell me about that name. Like where does the name come from? And how
Yeah.
can people who might be watching or listening utilize your services?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll answer the second question first. You can visit morganlatimer.com. That's just one T. So LATIMER.com, morganlatimer.com. Morgan Latimer, those are two last names of my two favorite Black inventors. These are the folks that I learned about that because of their life, I was inspired to pursue a life in tech. Garrett A. Morgan was responsible for things like the precursor to the modern traffic light, gas mask apparatus that allowed firemen to walk into smoke-filled buildings and save lives, and was responsible for the straightening cone. He could not sell his gas mask apparatus on his own because he was a Black man. He needed a white man to sell his inventions for him while he passed himself off as Native American. Lewis H. Latimer was responsible for for drafting Thomas Edison's patent designs, and also himself, I believe, invented a better filament for the light bulb. So the Morgan Latimer logo is actually a light bulb, because I'm lighting the way for the next generation of tech, and the filament inside is an M for maize.
Wow.
I'm dropping that in there for you.
I see. I see. Wow. I knew there was an interesting story behind that. And it lets us know where your heart is and where it lies into why you do what you do. And, everybody, listen, Anthony out here, love this. Okay. Rock the mic, Maze. Look, they're telling you, that they're liking what you're saying and keep it going. And Monica is saying, thanks. Keeping God first is key to help us in our journey with this thing called life. Anthony, we just appreciate, and I know we're running up on time, but I appreciate you coming and dropping the gems that you dropped tonight and sharing with us your story. I am honored to have met you. I look forward to us doing something together again, working together again, because like you, I'm just now intrigued to see how we can help spread the word about tech. And it's more than just the help desk, or it's just coding, or just what we know it to be. So thank you so much. But I'd love for you to share with everyone how they can keep in touch with you. And I'm going to go ahead and put this up here so you can see.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're looking at is my website, anthonydmays.com. If you visit anthonydmays.com/links, you'll find tons of resources. Actually, the second link right there is for those of you who are interested in technical interviewing. I've been running a promotion since yesterday. I did an IG Live yesterday. Had the great pleasure of being on that channel. And there's a discount on Technical Interviewing 101 where I explain how you can think about the technical interview rightly and use the right strategies for getting through that. I've discounted that from the $49 it usually is to $19. So if that's something you're interested in, great. I've also got free articles, resources, YouTube videos. If you just want to watch me play Animal Crossing covers on YouTube, that's there. So yeah, there's all kinds of things, but that's the best way. And all my socials are there. Please follow, because I don't always know when I'm going to open my mouth and drop gems. So you just got to catch me when you catch me on Clubhouse, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever.
Awesome. So you guys make sure you go and connect with Anthony D. Mays. That is his handle on pretty much everything, it looks like. So,
right.
Instagram, LinkedIn, Anthony D. Mays, Twitter. Like, I got to go make sure I'm connected to you on all of these social avenues. But because really, you all are just I should say, we are just very privileged, Anthony, to just have you share what you shared. And I definitely want to make sure we take advantage of that and be able to connect with you. So you all let him know, hey, I heard you on the podcast, or I watched your live stream, and just give him some encouragement. And if you are listening to this or watching this and you have an interest in a career in tech, reach out to Anthony. I mean, and see what Morgan Latimer can do for you from a consulting standpoint. He has a special on his interview guide, $19. Okay. Make sure you grab that, but take it seriously if this is something that you're very, very interested in. And then also on his link, he didn't mention it, but he has his story on BuzzFeed. So I watched his story on BuzzFeed. It is not even long. It's like maybe 3 to 4 minutes. It's not that long, I should say. I don't know if it's 3 to 4
I think
minutes.
it's like 15 minutes.
It's like 15 minutes. But I remember thinking, I want some more. Where's the rest of the movie? It's not long at all, but listen, it will help you understand even fuller the young man that sits before us today and that has spent this time with us this evening. So Anthony, we thank you. We appreciate you. We are going to, I mean, they're showing you love over here in the chat. They say, hearts. They say, thank you. Fantastic discussion. Looking forward to your success. Thank you both. Jose says, I appreciate you, Anthony. All the love is over
Yeah,
in the chat.
I
So,
see you, Brandy. I see you, Edward. I see you,
yes.
Rosalind. I see you, Marcus. Khaled. I see you, Matt. What's going on, brother? Jose, who's always been faithful. Roya. Daniel was on
Yes.
here earlier. Yeah,
Hafiz,
I love them
amazing
all.
work, Anthony. Look, okay. Yavo, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I love the name. Thank you for dropping so many gems. So the audience shares in my sentiments that we are very appreciative for you. Ray Butler says, amazing, Anthony. I mean, just the love and all of that. So if you guys really enjoyed this, make sure you head over to YouTube and subscribe, because we're going to be highlighting other people that want to share their stories with you, that can inspire you to do what it is that you would like to do, and hopefully learn and get and build your network and your circle of people that you look to help you elevate in what it is that you're trying to do next. So hrplug.com is the website. For YouTube, it's youtube.com/hrplug, and just hit subscribe, and you'll know when we go live what we'll be talking about ahead of time. If you don't want to watch, you don't have to, but at least you'll know what's coming up, and be able to catch the replay if you miss it live. So thank you again, Anthony. I'm going to go ahead and send you backstage. And let me just, before you go, Ms. Trina on here says, I work for a Black-owned tech company as a senior talent acquisitionist. I'm always looking for tech talent. So Trina and Anthony, if y'all not already connected, make sure y'all connect,
Let's
because
do it.
yes,
Let's do it. And I got to say, LaShawn, thank you so much for the honor,
yes.
for granting me the honor of being here. I know you didn't have to do it, but you've just been incredible. Your whole style is amazing. Like I've been taking notes the whole hour.
Oh.
Trust me.
Thank you very much, very much. And we are going to be connecting. We are going to do some stuff together, for sure, for sure. Trina, make sure you connect with Anthony, because if you work for a Black-owned tech consulting company as a talent acquisitionist, Anthony could very well help you guys with some consulting strategies to attract some, support you guys in attracting talent, or help prepare talent so that you guys can get the best of the best to work for your organization. So,
Absolutely.
Anthony, I'm going to send you backstage as I say goodbye to everybody. So thank you for that. You guys, tonight was amazing. I hope you enjoyed this session with Anthony. I hope that you learned something, even if you're not interested in tech, that you learned something about it, something that you can share, something about diversity, something about inclusion, something about Google. And I didn't mention it, but it's just amazing that he still has an amicable relationship with Google. So if you do decide to jump or leap into entrepreneurship, don't think that the relationship has to be adversarial with where you work now. There could still be happy endings. And my boss once told me, maybe one day I'll bring you back as a consultant for us. So you want to make sure you maintain those relationships. Anthony may very well go back and be a consultant for Google. You may very well go back and be a consultant for wherever it is that you're working. So be amicable and don't burn the bridges, but just take what you learn day to day and use it to help get you or position you to where you want to ultimately be. Anthony is the greatest of all time, is some of the comments here. And Camille says, thank you, Anthony. And Trina says, yes, love it. Yes. Ray says, Trina Reese, let's connect. So Ray wants to connect with you, Trina, as well. So you both are on LinkedIn. Make sure you guys link up, because this is what this is all about. This is about helping each other and supporting each other. That's what we do here. So make sure you guys connect with me as well on Instagram. The HR Plug, really handle for all social media as well. It has been a pleasure talking with you guys tonight. I know we went a little bit over, but it was so well worth it. So appreciate your level of engagement, appreciate your time, and we will see you next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. on the Let's Get Plugged podcast. Take care and have a great evening.